As the conflict rages between the United States, Israel and Iran, now some of the most secret part of the war are finally coming to light. Far from the cameras and official statements, one of the most dramatic stories was unfolding. Mind you, not over Tehran, but in the empty deserts of western Iraq. On the land where Iraq never approved for foreign use, Israel quietly built a hidden military base to help strike deep inside Iran and rescue downed pilots if missions went wrong. The outpost stayed in the shadows until a lone shepherd noticed strange helicopters and gunfire in the desert and alerted Iraqi troops, setting off a deadly chain of events that exposed a covert front in the widening war. So today in this edition of From the News Desk, we will tell you all about this Israeli base which Baghdad never approved of and how it remained invisible for such a long time. Well, the secret began to unravel not through satellite or spies, but through a shepherd. Iraqi state media and officials say a local herder in the western desert noticed low-flying helicopters and unusual military activity in an otherwise empty stretch of land and reported it to authorities in early March. His tip triggered a routine investigation that unexpectedly walked Iraqi troops towards one of the most sensitive covert sites of this very war. Iraqi units were dispatched to probe the remote area near the Syrian and Jordanian borders, far from populated centers and regular patrol routes. But as they advanced, they came under sudden airstrike. Well, Iraqi officials later said one soldier was killed and at least two were wounded in those very strikes that hit the investigation force before it could reach the suspected site. Well, at that time, Baghdad publicly blamed foreign forces and initially pointed the fingers at the United States, filing a formal complaint to the United Nations over what it called a reckless violation of sovereignty carried out without any coordination. Only later did reporting based on US officials and people familiar with the operation indicated that it was purely Israel that acted to keep those Iraqi troops away from a covert Israeli-run base on Iraqi soil. Now, a senior Iraqi commander hinted at something beyond Iraq's own capabilities, saying the strikes appear to involve a ground presence back from the air, an operation beyond the capability of their own unit. In fact, subsequent Iraqi searches of the area reportedly turned up the signs that highly trained foreign forces had recently operated there, deepening suspicion that Iraq had briefly brushed against an invisible front line of this very Iran war. Now, behind that invisible line, the base was built to bring Israel's war with Iran several hundred kilometers closer to the battlefield. In fact, multiple stakeholders cited in the Wall Street Journal report say the outpost was established as a logistical hub to support long-range Israeli operation into Iran, including strikes that were launched after 28 February that killed Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. With Israel more than 1,000 kilometers from key Iranian targets, western Iraq's desert offered a discreet staging ground just one jump away from Iran's airspace. Well, this very installation reportedly housed Israel's special forces units trained for operation behind enemy lines, as well as specialized search and rescue teams poised to move if any Israeli pilots were shot down deep inside Iran. Their mission was very clear. If a fighter jet went down near cities like Isfahan or deeper into Iranian territory, these teams would race in from Iraq to extract crews before Iranian forces could capture them. Well, that very contingency became reality when a US S-15 was shot down near Isfahan during the campaign. As per reports, Israel is said to have offered its Iraqi-based rescue teams to help locate and secure the American airmen, while the United States ultimately conducted the recovery itself, with Israeli strikes reportedly helping secure the wider area. Well, Washington, according to these accounts, was aware of the base and its purpose, even as Baghdad remained in the absolute darkness. Now, beyond rescue operation, the base functioned as a forward logistic and coordination node for the Israeli Air Force, allowing refueling, planning, and special operations supported to be conducted closer to Iranian airspace. In military terms, it shortened Israel's reach, reduced reaction time, and most importantly, embedded Israeli assets inside a third country whose government had neither authorized nor even been informed of this very project. Now, revelations about the Western Iraq outpost underscores how modern warfare increasingly spill across borders through deniable infrastructure and sits in legal and political grey zones. By placing a covert base on Iraqi soil to fight a war with Iran, Israel effectively turned a third country into an unconsenting rear area for its campaign, exposing Iraqi troops to deadly fire when they unknowingly drew too closer. For Baghdad, the incident has become a new case study in how foreign militaries can carve out roles in its own territory without formal basing agreements or public treaties. And for militaries, the episode illustrates the premium placed on depth, rescue capabilities, and most importantly, redundancy in an era of long-range precision strikes. But the price of secrecy has own escalation risks. When Iraqi forces died approaching a base their own government knew nothing about, the immediate reaction in Baghdad was to accuse the United States at United Nations, risking diplomatic rupture with Washington over an operation that US officials now insist was purely Israeli. Well, for now, as US-Israel-Iran War's covert chapters come into focus, the Western Iraq base stands out as a blueprint of how future conflicts may be fought.